Hello, my friends. My name is Brent, and we're going to talk about self-esteem. So the title of the video is how to increase your self-esteem, how to do it quickly, rapidly, and to do so without false positivity. So in other words, it's no good to have self-esteem that's based on trying to force a smile on your face, trying to think positive, but your whole body and mind is rejecting it. Where it feels like you're in some kind of denial, like you're not being realistic. No, what we want is authentic, high self-esteem, a healthy self-esteem, where when you think about yourself, you like yourself. In fact, maybe you even love yourself. You are quick to be compassionate and kind to yourself. And you might even feel proud of yourself. And so if I'm speaking to you and you're hearing this from a place of low self-esteem, this may all seem like a pretty tall order. You may feel like you're very far away from it, like it's an impossible bridge, an impossible chasm to bridge. And nevertheless, I would like for you to know, and I'd like for you to rest assured that to have a healthy, authentic self-esteem is not that far away at all. I would suggest instead that if you have failed so far in being able to develop a strong, healthy self-esteem, it's not because it's difficult to do, but perhaps you've been coming at it the wrong way. And I wouldn't blame you for this. There's just a general misconception around what it takes. Like culturally speaking, societally speaking, there are big misunderstandings about what it takes to have a healthy self-esteem. And so today we can quickly go over those misconceptions and correct them. And then as a result of approaching this the right way, you can be on the road to developing a wonderful, wonderful, functional, healthy, mature self-esteem. So that's what we're going to do today. So if we never met, I'm Brent. I'm a personal coach. I work with people to actualize their potential or become self-actualized. This involves sometimes being disciplined, being consistent, if you're in a place of a lot of chaos, moving from chaos into order and getting on top of your life. And so if that's of interest to you, I got links below. But we're going to talk about self-esteem today because that's a massive element of most of my conversations with most of my clients. And I really like talking about it. So that's why we're doing that today. Kindly hit like, please, if you're interested. And you'll see me referencing my notes here. If you see me looking down, that's why. So just to set the stage properly then, and just to get into this, because I'm excited to dive in with you. I want you to know that in order to move from a low self-esteem to a high self-esteem, we are going to challenge your way of thinking, and we're going to challenge your belief system. And despite how much you may want to have a high self-esteem and how much you want to escape that cruel, terrible voice in your head that's constantly saying mean things to you all the time, what you will likely encounter is yourself wanting to fight back against what I'm saying and push back, like to claim that what I'm saying is wrong, or like it's not that simple, or you'll just want to argue and lash out against what I'm saying. And the reason for this is innocent. It's because whenever it comes to addressing how we think about things, when it comes to addressing our basic foundational beliefs about ourselves, and who we are and our place in the world and how the world works. Like these are very valuable beliefs because they create structure for us to live in. Like if we didn't have these beliefs, then we wouldn't know which way is up. We wouldn't know how to function. We wouldn't know how to exist in this world. It would just be totally overwhelming. So when we assess these really core ideas that you have about you and about your life, we need to do so tenderly, but we also want to challenge ourselves to be as open-minded as possible so that we can replace maladaptive, unhelpful, suffering-causing ideas for better ideas. And so to do this, I suggest that we begin with the possibility that the way that you think about yourself is wrong. Would you be willing to do that? Can we open up a territory now? Can we open up some space for you to assume or at minimum, play with the assumption that you're wrong about yourself. And that despite how strongly you hold certain ideas about yourself, those ideas are wrong. Now, this is especially tricky because not only do we want to guard our basic beliefs, our foundational beliefs, because they provide a structure, but also because we are creative people and we're smart people, we tend to filter our lives and how we perceive our lives through our beliefs, and thus we collect data points, we collect evidence to further prove and bolster our beliefs, despite how painful these beliefs are. So if, for example, if you have this idea about yourself that you are worthless and useless and bad and no one likes you, if I were to come in to say the opposite, that a lot of people like you and that you have tons of value and that you're important and worthy of love and so forth, you would very likely want to argue, and you would have all of your evidence to prove why your claim about yourself is true, that you don't deserve love, etc. And just because you have evidence to support your negative viewpoints about yourself doesn't mean that your view about yourself is true. All it means is that you've been able to prove it true by gathering evidence. But it's possible to gather evidence for anything. You can gather evidence to support an idea that the earth is flat. Or you could create an entirely new religion out of nothing and have it involve fictional deities and so forth. And you could also collect evidence to support that. So the fact that you're able to find evidence to support a point of view doesn't make that point of view right. It just means that you've believed it for a long time, and that's what happens. So all of this to say, we're just entering a space where you might possibly be wrong about yourself. And it's through that loosening up and that open-mindedness that we can entertain some new ideas. And I'll say as well, even though this should probably go without saying, that I'm not necessarily asking you to just straight up believe everything that I'm telling you, like you should just accept what I'm saying either. What I'm saying is that the amount of skepticism that you offer to me, you should just offer it in equal parts to your own belief structures. Because I'm just offering ultimately another belief structure, and you should step outside of both and evaluate them both and go into it with the knowing that whichever belief structure you adhere to or subscribe to, that is what your life will resemble. That is what you will ultimately collect data points to prove. So you want to choose carefully. You want to choose wisely based on the type of experience that you want to have. So, really, honestly, that's one of the most foundational and important things that we can establish, is that belief systems are just belief systems and that they can be replaced. And then this often does lead itself to a question about what's true. Like, is there anything true outside of belief systems? And I believe the answer is yes, and that will be the substance for another video. In fact, my most recent one, we discussed truth, and I hint at it in a few different ways in that one, so you can check that out if you're interested. But what I want you to know for now is that belief systems are just belief systems. So that's step one. And so then step two is to choose your belief system deliberately. And step two is for me to actually update what I just said a moment ago. Because a moment ago I said, okay, they're just equal, but there's a difference between a negative view about yourself and a positive view about yourself. Whereas despite the fact that you can believe either and enter into a reality that is colored by either, if you were to accept a positive view of yourself and accept a belief system that viewed you favorably and that said something like you deserve to be loved, you deserve respect, you deserve to be held and seen, you're a good person, you're a hard worker, etc., etc. By accepting this belief system and entering into it, it will allow you to grow. So the problem with having a negative self-esteem and having a negative belief system about yourself is that it's based on a series of hostile and life-denying ideas about yourself, such as, I'm a piece of shit, I'm garbage, nobody loves me, I keep screwing it up, etc., etc. And when we believe these, it creates a painful emotion in us because these are painful ideas. To choose just one example, let's go with the one of nobody loves me. To believe this, regardless, let's just take the objective reality aside for a minute. We'll get to that in a second, but regardless of what the objective reality is, if you live in a belief system that says nobody loves me, then that creates a painful sensation. And what will happen as a result of being in that painful sensation is that you will want to get out of it. You will want to get out of that pain. You'll be highly motivated to get out of this pain. And so how do you do this? You do this by saying, well, if more people loved me, then I wouldn't be in this pain. If more people loved me, then it would no longer be true that nobody loves me. And so then we start getting to the work of trying to get people to love us. But because we have entered into this situation from a belief that we're not loved and are thus trying to get love, we are on a sort of uphill battle with ourselves. We are chasing a carrot that's attached to a string, attached to a stick, that's attached to our back, something that we can never get. Because the core belief is not being addressed. The core belief is nobody loves me. And so if somebody even shows love towards us, even if they say, I love you, then we'll be inclined to disbelieve it and probably reject it or say thank you, but like they probably don't mean it, or think that they love us only because of something that we did for them, or they'll love us only for a moment, but they won't love us later. In other words, them saying I love you is like a seed that they attempt to plant in our soil, but our soil is completely hostile and dry to the sprouting of that plant. Whereas if somebody said the opposite, if somebody said you're a piece of human garbage and I don't love you, because that's a match with our belief about ourselves, then they can plant that seed. And then that becomes part of the evidence that we continue to collect to support our belief. So, where was I going with that? Oh, right. Yeah, we were talking about, so if you, so what happens then is that you're in this impossible situation where you're trying to get love and you're trying to get people to love you because it'll get you out of this pain, but you're competing against this belief that you accepted a long time ago, a premise that you're building your house upon, that you are not loved and unlovable. And so then it just becomes the narrative of your life, trying to seek love, but then getting it and resisting it and rejecting it and disbelieving it and never quite getting there. And then constant suffering is generated from this idea. And so therefore, that's why it's so much more advantageous to accept a belief system that says, I am loved. And now, it's tricky, especially from the perspective of somebody with low self-esteem, because if you've thought for years and years and years and collected evidence for years and years and years that I'm unloved, to make this jump into I'm loved would seem nearly impossible. And I'm not even necessarily asking you to do that, at least not just yet. I would consider it to be a major victory of this video if I could just get you to agree with me that both positions don't have any supremacy over the other. If we could just agree that they're on the same footing and that they're just premises that you can accept and operate from, that would be massive. Because then what you could do is you could at least, at minimum, begin the work of migrating yourself over to a point of view that you would prefer. Now, I'll say this too. This is a point that I began to make, and I'm going to complete it now, which is that When you have a positive idea about yourself, when you are willing to see yourself as deserving, as worthy, as loved, as cool, as good, then what happens is that negative, hostile experience that was created by the negative ideas that you had about yourself is switched to a loving and spacious type of experience. And that spaciousness is what allows us to grow and develop. So an analogy would be, you know, I'm going to link this below. There's a really funny 10-second video of some actor who just approaches somebody like on a busy street somewhere in what I assume is Manhattan. And this person's holding a yoga bag and says, all right, miss, for $1, name a woman. And she's like, what? Just like name any woman? And the guy's like, yes, for $1, name a woman. Come on, name a woman. And she's like, and he's like, name a woman. So I'll put a link for that in the description. It's really, really funny because she got into the state of being frozen up and just like couldn't name anybody. And then she just like ran away. It's really funny and sweet kind of. And so, that really illustrates what we're talking about here, because when there's no space for you, then there's no space to maneuver. There's no space to grow. There's no space to think. There's no space to create. Like often what happens is when we have low self-esteem, we have this narrative about ourselves where it's like, if I could just get to a place where like I stop screwing up, or if I could just get to a certain amount of success, or if I could just secure a certain form of forgiveness about something, then I could heave a sigh of relief. I could just finally, I would have space. I could finally think. I could finally breathe. So notice how your worldview and your perception of yourself makes it so that there's no room for you to breathe, right? And you'll often feel it as like physical tightness, often in your chest, often in your stomach. There's just tightness here, and there's a sense of like there's no time, there's no room, there's no space, there's no room to breathe. And then the irony of this whole thing is that by having a high self-esteem, then there's room for you to maneuver, there's room for you to make mistakes, there's room for the learning process. And then on top of all of that, all of the ways that you accuse yourself of not being who you otherwise could be, there's a correct kernel in all of that, because it's true what you possibly could be. Like the ideas that you have of what you could achieve, what you could accomplish, what you could do, and you're so hard on yourself for not doing these things, and you judge yourself for not doing these things, those intuitions are correct, but you just don't have the space that you need to activate them. And so by choosing a high self-esteem, there is space. And again, the mind rejects this because the mind will say, well, like I'm so behind and I'm so bad that I can't even afford to give myself this space. But then that's just the old belief system preventing the new one from coming in. So now I would like to invite you to choose a healthy self-esteem. And here's the way that this works. I'm going to take you through a simple procedure. And I'm going to ask you to make a handful of declarations about yourself. Now, as you say these things, it's not necessary for you to have some sort of amazing emotional experience. And you don't have to like really mean it. Like you don't have to like feel like what you're saying, like as if you're full of enthusiasm about what I'm saying. I'm asking you to make a series of decisions and declarations so that your self-esteem and your perception of yourself can start to unfold in this new way. So in other words, we're this idea of a snowball getting bigger as it rolls down the hill. We're going to push a snowball down a new side of the mountain, and it begins with these declarations. So please repeat the following. I deserve a healthy self-esteem. I deserve to be loved. It is natural for me to have a healthy self-esteem. It is natural for me to like myself. I choose self-respect. I release any reasons that I have for withholding respect. I release any reasons that I have for withholding self-love. I release any reasons that I have for withholding forgiveness. All reasons that I have for withholding love, respect, and forgiveness are wrong. I'm willing to perceive myself as valuable. I'm willing to know my value. I understand that my value is independent of what I do. I understand that my value is independent of what I have done. Good. How's that feel, right? So everything I said to you is true. Any arguments that could be made against them are false. And again, just to go over this one more time, when we have opinions about something, and especially opinions about ourselves, from one perspective, from the postmodern perspective, or from the, in other words, from a, what we could call a constructivist standpoint, we would say that all opinions are just opinions. They're all just opinions. You can look at the menu of opinions and choose anyone you like, and anyone is true as a result of holding that opinion. And that's fine. And yet, if we were to evaluate the benefits of high self-esteem versus low self-esteem thinking, high self-esteem thinking is more life-affirming, produces more growth, makes you more useful, provides more wellness, is better for your body, and so therefore, now we can bring back this objective thing, therefore it's objectively better. It creates better results for you and for everybody in your family and in your midst, because when you have a high self-esteem, you can be better for everybody else around you. And when you have a high self-esteem, you can be more effective, more helpful, more loving. Because here's the truth about having a high self-esteem is that when you learn how to love yourself, you naturally learn how to love everybody else. And you learn that being more loving is better. And any reasons for not being loving are wrong. Like, for example, people say, well, I don't want to love bad people because then it'll give the impression that I love the bad things that they do. This is not true. You can love murderers and pedophiles and rapists and political figures that you otherwise hate. You can love them and also see what's wrong with what they're doing, wrong with their way of viewing. And then this love will allow you to not be captured by them. Because the thing is, whenever you hate something, you're hypnotized by it. But to love something is to just permit it to be in the universe without being beholden to it. This is a very powerful concept. So anyways, I think we're going to wrap this up. Please let me know if this was helpful. There's one more note that I want to end on, which is forgiveness. Because a lot of us feel like we lack forgiveness or need forgiveness. And Eckhart Tolle once said, and this is one of my favorite things that he's ever said, and I'm so grateful for him saying this, Eckhart Tolle, the guy who brought you The Power of Now, is that the final word on forgiveness is, there is nothing to forgive. Remember that even for those of us who are mean-spirited, who have done terrible things, who have done terrible, terrible things are only done from a place of unconsciousness, right? When you wake up to perceive the inherent value, and I'm telling you, this is something you come to realize, it's baked in truth. When you come to realize the value of a human being, when you come to realize the value of human sovereignty, then it becomes impossible to cause any harm. So if harm has been caused by you or to you, it was done in sleepfulness. It's been done in unconsciousness. And so therefore we release forgiveness, not to condone bad behavior, but to liberate ourselves from our attachment to them, so that we may move on into better and greener pastures. So may forgiveness be released in you now. May forgiveness be released by you now, so that you may move forward in this way. Thank you for watching. Please hit like on the video. Check out the links below, and I'll catch you on the next one.